The collapse of the COVID cartel will have occurred, and it's upon us because of the bravery of people who risked it all, and some of them made great sacrifices. One of them making that sacrifice and standing up after 23 years as a pilot with United Airlines is Captain Sherry Walker. She is with a group called Airline Employees for Health Freedom. Sherry Walker, you folks are standing up to Mr. Kirby, the CEO of United Airlines, and his demand that you get vaccinated. Why?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, we have folks that have medical issues and a lot of faith-based reasons against the mandate. And, of course, we're all constitutional loving Americans.
Y'all have filed a lawsuit, as I understand. I've got a lot of notes here. I want to make sure that, because there's some parallel courses here. Y'all have filed a lawsuit. I think Judge Mark Pittman, made the first ruling on your behalf. Is that right?
Yes, sir. We filed in the Northern District of Texas under Judge Mark Pittman. We received a temporary restraining order for the month of September all the way through the preliminary injunction hearing in November. Unfortunately, we did not succeed, and we are now appealing to the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans.
Now, y'all's argument is you hang your hat on Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 64 or the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or both. I know you want a reasonable accommodation. That's your argument.
Yes, sir. And unfortunately, or fortunately, those two regulations do afford individuals the rights to reasonable accommodations. The unfortunate side is Mr. Kirby, in his marketing ploy to come up with a 100% vaccinated airline, has said the only reasonable accommodation, in his opinion, is indefinite unpaid leave for over 2,000 United employees.
The CEO of United Airlines said before the United States Senate and told Ted Cruz that the reason they were doing this to you folks was because of safety. He used the word safety over and over and over again. But the CEOs of rival airlines, including Southwest Airlines, have come out and said it's not about safety. You don't need to wear a mask, or at least the mask is not about safety. It's safe to fly on these airlines. I don't know what he said about vaccines. Why don't you think this is about safety?
Well, we can cite Judge Pittman's ruling where he calls the safety argument pretextual. In the court hearing, our Vice President of Flight Ops, when asked whether or not he would rather sit next to a pilot who had the vaccine or was tested that morning, after hemming and hawing, it finally admitted that testing is the only way to ensure that you are not contagious or detrimental to your coworkers. Meanwhile, we have passengers in the back not required to vaccinate yet or tested, and we've got all sorts of United studies and promotions saying that you're safer. In fact, Mr. Kirby, I believe, said it in the hearing, that you're safer on an airplane than you are actually in an operating suite. So we're trying to figure out why we can't test and go back to work.
And the reasoning for that, just to be clear, is the air handling system. We're also talking about a stage of COVID that is not what it once was. It's being compared to the common cold, which I call the common COVID. You have 23 and a half years as a pilot. You've been a pilot since you were 18 years old. Now you're in your mid-50s. You've got a long and storied and very successful career as a pilot. You're willing to risk it all for this?
Yes, sir, because I have a 16-year-old son. And in 10 years, when he's trying to get a job and his boss tells him, well, you have to have a certain medical procedure to work here, my son looks back at me and says, Mom, you had a chance to fight this, and you didn't. And I can't live with myself and the children of all the members of our organization, and yours, in fact. We need to stand up and stop this government overreach.
According to FlightAware.com, more than 1,200 U.S. flights were canceled and more than 5,000 delayed over the Christmas weekend. You make the argument, your organization makes the argument, that those flights, at least from United's perspective, could have continued on, that you had the staffing. Now, take a moment. You've explained this to me already off air, but it's a little complicated, the math, so walk us through that. We didn't have to have any cancellations. People didn't have to be stranded at the airports. That's what you claim. Prove it.
All righty. Well, in the testimony at the U.S. Senate Commerce Committee, Mr. Kirby said that only 80 pilots had been put on unpaid leave. We knew that number not to be true, and it sparked an audit. And in our audit, we actually came up with 354 coworkers, pilots, that we knew were available to fly. So if we take the fact that it takes 2 pilots to fly an airplane, and that the average 4-day trip, which we fly domestically from December 23rd through the 26th, would be approximately 7 legs, 7 flights, that would come up to 1,239 flights that those 354 pilots could have flown. Now, if we add in the amount of flight attendants that we have and we divide that number out, because it takes about 4 flight attendants for a domestic flight, we drop that number down to about 848 flights that my people who are home on unpaid indefinite leave could have covered. We look at FlightAware, United canceled 633 flights. We could have easily covered that.
Sounds logical to me. So nobody needed to be stranded at the airport if United Airlines didn't insist on this vaccine mandate that now Joe Biden yesterday says there is no federal solution. Well, they're claiming it's an OSHA mandate. Some companies are imposing it, some aren't. You're saying they could make a reasonable accommodation and they don't have to lay you folks off.
That's correct. In our court proceedings, we argued with Dr. Bhattacharya, one of the expert witnesses, that we had worked the entire pandemic safely through temperature checks and masking. We offered up testing as much as daily testing, and the company said, no, that's not reasonable. We offered it on our own nickel. We would pay for our own testing, and they still said that was unreasonable. So here we are in December, 3 months later, and unfortunately our passengers are sitting home or stranded somewhere at an airport, and we could have helped them.
Judge Pittman, in his ruling before the Northern District, said that you have, quote, compelling evidence to prevail at trial. He also found that their ruling, the implementation of their order was not based on safety. That was instead, as you said, pretextual. That was just an excuse they were offering. God help them if that turns out to be true, because they inconvenienced a lot of people, and it's a pretty severe inconvenience when, if you're right, they didn't have to.
Well, and unfortunately, United is not satisfied with those of us who are unpaid indefinite leave. They've taken it upon themselves to ensure not only are we out of work, that we are basically ruined. They've prevented us from seeking outside employment. They've prevented us from accessing our 401ks in emergency situations to pay our now exorbitant medical and our housing expenses, et cetera. So to us, it appears it's just about getting a shot in the arm, not about safety.
Over 2,000 United Airlines employees have filed EEOC discrimination complaints, which the EEOC says is the largest number of complaints against a single employer since the EEOC was created in 1964. And it was noted that if you prevail at trial, they will have to pay you back pay and everything they didn't pay you during this time, which could cost them $600 million if you folks win.
That's before we look at damages. So, yes, that would make us whole, but now we've got to talk about the number of people who have been harmed. Maybe some have been terminated, others have been forced to take a shot, violate their faith, and that's where the irreparable harm piece comes in. So
Sherry
damages
Walker,
is going to be huge.
Let's break some news, shall we? Sherry Walker and
Sure.
her organization, Airline Employees for Health Freedom, claim that United Airlines is about to bring 306 London-based unvaccinated staff to fill the positions of the unvaccinated staff they have laid off here. If that's true, that's very disturbing. We'll get into that coming up. I'm Michael Berry, in for Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Sherry Walker is a captain with United Airlines, 23 and a half years experience as a pilot, about to make some news. Go ahead. What plane do you most like to fly?
Probably the 757. She's fast.
Because it's fast?
Yeah.
How much faster than the other plane is it?
Fast enough to get me home for time off.
That's what you care about?
Yeah.
How much are you actually doing when we're up in the air? I mean, are you basically just checking your phone? I mean, is that thing flying itself?
No, sir. We're not checking our phone. No, navigating, taking care of the passengers, air conditioning, pressurization, cooling, talking about the world.
Are you one of those pilots that does all the talking? Because we don't want to hear all that. We really don't. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
You know the pilots that just want an audience and they have you stuck there and they give you all this when all you're trying to do is get settled in? Because that thing's too loud back there in the cabin.
Yeah, and I travel a lot too, and so nothing is more annoying. I much prefer quick on and a quick off, and let the folks enjoy their movies. Because every time we pick up that mic, it interrupts what you're doing.
That being said, one of my best experiences as an airline passenger was a Southwest Airlines pilot. We were stuck on the runway, and he said, "Would y'all like me to come back and play my harmonica? I won't if you don't want." And yes, absolutely. And he came back and just ripped, and it was so cool. It was one of the neatest. I wish I could figure out who that man was. Sherry Walker, Captain United Airlines, 23 years experience. You are with a group called the Airline Employees for Health Freedom. Are you, what is your status now? You're at home and can't fly?
Yes, sir. Myself, co-founder Laura Cox, we developed a 501c4, and we have about 4,000 members, of which, and that's across all transportation. We've got other airlines, we've got trucking, we've got rail. And about 2,000 of us are United employees who have filed our lawsuit. So my days are consumed with managing that organization.
We talk about nurses and teachers as a ministry, but I know a lot of pilots and flight attendants, and this is a ministry for you. You love this. This is your passion. It's all you ever wanted to do, isn't it?
Fly or take care of folks?
Both.
I love flying. But I'll tell you what, we've become quite a family. Maybe we're the outcasts, I don't know, but some of the most faithful and wonderful people I've met. And, you sit up at that pointy end of that jet and you lose sight sometimes of the guys who gently place those bags in the belly or that are handling the angry passengers in the terminal. And when we come home and we take our uniform off and we stand for a cause together, we're all just human beings. So it's really a wonderful group of folks.
Sherry, Scott Kirby went before the United States Senate and repeatedly said that this was about safety. You could not fly the plane because you refused the vaccine that we now know doesn't work. But you cannot fly the plane because you refused the vaccine, and this is about safety. So, if in fact, as you say, and I want you to say it, what you're about to tell us is true, that means they're bringing in unvaccinated people to fill these positions, which means they're not worried about their safety or anyone else's, which would mean that submitting to the vaccine mandate was not about safety, and that's going to cost him a lot of money. Tell us the breaking news that you just discovered.
So, first of all, let me back up. We also have a jump seat in the cockpit where other pilots from other airlines can fly. So our pilots allow other pilots from other airlines who are unvaccinated to travel on our planes daily. Okay, so right now they're there. Across our system, the only folks mandated to have the vaccine are U.S.-based domestic folks. That means that our foreign-based employees are not vaccinated, to include our London-based flight attendants. Now, while this is breaking news in the numbers, this has been the case since the mandate came down. We have flight attendants based in London who routinely fly to the U.S. and then fly either back to Europe or somewhere else, and then eventually regroup with their London team and fly back to London. So once they get to the U.S., they're intermixed with our other flight attendants. I had a flight attendant bring me a picture of the schedules for January. Based on those schedules, there are 306 or 9 London-based flight attendants who will not be vaccinated, who will be flying our passengers around the U.S. or back to Europe.
That is incredibly disturbing. If that is true, I see no reason to believe that this is anything other than a mean, cruel, authoritarian effort to say, you will comply with my mandates, because I am the king and you are not. You know, Sherry Walker, if you and others did not stand up to this, we wouldn't know it. Continue your fight. I hope you win. Sherry Walker, Captain United Airlines. The group is Airline Employees for Health Freedom. And why? Why are we doing this? Why are police officers, Marines, nurses, pilots, flight attendants, doctors, why are people losing their jobs? Why are we having supply chain problems? Why are we seeing the collapse of our country and our economy and our society, our civilization, our kindness because of all of this?